things that the banks are looking for. And I want to start with the deal. I think that is the most important because ultimately the banks want to invest in something that is safe and secure, and they are going to get their money back. They don't want you to default. So ultimately, the better the deal, the more excited the bank is to talk to you. If you went to a bank and you said, hey, I want to buy this, 2,500 square foot house and convert the 400 square foot garage, and I'll now have 6 bedrooms, and I'm going to charge, $5,000 a month, 30 grand, and then I'm going to hire a manager and have full-time staff. And you know what? When I'm 100% occupied, I'm going to crush it, man. I'm going to have like $5,000 a month in profit. Woo! Right? Like the bank's going to look at you like, that's not very good. But if you took one of our deals and you said, okay, we're going to build out this mansion. It's for $2.2 million. We already had an appraisal done on it. The appraisal came back after it was built. It's going to be worth $6 million based on the other assisted livings built in my area. Mine's being built for 2.2. It's going to be worth 6, right? I'm literally building it less than half of future value. Then I'm showing my bed rates, okay? And this is not just like they're not taking my word for it. They go and they do analysis on this stuff, right? And so I'm showing, hey, my bed rates are at $8,000, right? $8,000. Here's my full pro forma. Here's all my numbers. Here's everything that I need to. And the banks, they're not naive. They know what everything is. This is their niche. So they have all these things vetted and they're like, okay, if I can show them, hey, here's how I make, $40,000 a month in cash flow and have 50% loan to future value, right? Like they're excited for this deal. They're like, man, Brett, like, let's do this. This checks all the boxes. We are good. We're excited to work with you. Like, how many are you going to build, right? That's the vibe, right? That's where they're at right now. So the deal is super, super important for the bank and for potential investors. This is why I want to be the one saying like, hey, like somebody's got to pave the way and say, let's show you how to do these luxury 16 beds, right? Like don't do residential zoning, right? Like let's get outside of this little RAL space and try something new because it's working for me and I want to show everybody else how to do it. So the deal is super important. The other thing that is really kind of an important thing and potentially a roadblock for some people is the down payment. And so let's talk through this because there's going to be most likely some kind of down payment, right? The bank is not going to lend you literally 100% of the money. Now, there are exceptions to that, and sometimes they do, but you would know if they do, and you probably wouldn't be on this call if you were the person who they lend 100% to. So let's just assume that they're not going to lend you 100%. They're probably going to lend, 70 to 90% of the funds, somewhere in that range. And we'll talk through which one is going to be which means you have to come up with 30, 20, or 10% of this capital, right? Which could be at least 100 grand, if not 300 or 400 grand. So we got to get that kind of money together. And then the experience. The experience is another important thing that the bank wants to know who you are. Why is the money safe in this? Really, it's a business, right? There's really a real estate company and there's an operations company. There's a real estate and there's business. And some type of these loans, they'll go and they'll just lend on the real estate. It's just literally appraisal of the real property, which is the building and the land, some type of formula, loan to appraisal, and they'll lend you that much based on that property, right? They're not really going to take the business into account. That's the way some banks will do it. Other banks will lend on the real estate plus on the business, right? They'll literally give you money, lend you money, additional funds above the collateral for the real estate for the business operations, the working capital, the furniture, the things you need. So in that respect, they are trusting you or will need to trust you and your experience. So I think really there's 2 types of experience that the bank is looking for when they're vetting you. And really there's business experience and then there's medical experience. So think of it from this perspective, right? Like you're running a business, it's an assisted living, and then it also has to do with ADLs and end of life and dementia and memory care and medication management and those kind of things, right? So there's medical stuff there also. This is, sometimes perfect for a nurse or a husband and wife that's like business and medical. Like it's a perfect little combination for some of these people. And because they have both of these things. But I don't think that you need both of these things. Like literally Laura and I had no medical experience when we got into this niche, right? We were real estate people. We had businesses. We knew how to run numbers, market. We knew how to do construction, how to raise money. That's what we knew. We knew nothing about medical stuff, but we hired someone to do that. So at least in my experience and from the words of my banker, they value business experience more than they value medical experience. They're both important, but it is easier to learn, especially in assisted living, because it's really just ADLs. It's easier to learn the medical side and or hire somebody with experience on the medical side. If you have the medical experience, but you don't have any business experience, that's a little bit of a steeper hill to climb. There's a lot of nuances between like hiring, firing, marketing, filling your beds, cash flow management. Like there's so many like nuances that you have to learn through business and school of hard knocks. So if you had business experience, it doesn't have to be assisted living. Something, if you had your own business or if you work for somebody else and you were a manager, you managed a team, there's value there. So as you're putting your business plan together, you stack your experience. You kind of position it in a way that shows, hey, here is what I was doing and here's how it's applicable. It may not be apples to apples, but you know what? I'm going to twist this just a little bit to say like, I did manage this team. So you know what? Now I have experience and I can probably manage my caregivers, right? I have marketing experience from this other job and now I can use that to translate into marketing experience for this assisted living, right? Just use the experience you have and you want to highlight that for the bank and you want to sell yourself, right? That's ultimately what you're doing. You were trying to sell yourself to prove to them that you are worthy of this loan, that you're not going to screw it up, that you're not going to default, that you're going to have your crap together, right? So experience is important. And really those two things, if you can get both those things, great. But if you have one of those two things, then that's fantastic because you can either bring on a partner who has the other or you can potentially hire someone for that. I think this is another one that's important that the bank is going to look at, right? This is all things that you can do to start preparing for a conversation with the bank. If you're in a seat now where you're like, hey, by the end of this year, I want to, purchase a property, I want to buy land, I want to get this deal going, then now is the time to take this, and we'll kind of emphasize this more as we move through tonight, and say, here are your to-do list. Here's how you can get your ducks in a row. Let's talk through these things, right? Great deal. Let's get the down payment money, which may be bringing on an investor partner, part of your team, finding some type of experience. You may not have to go get a new job. Just work on your business plan. And then let's talk about the next one, which is bankruptcy and credit. Because ultimately, you're going to be borrowing money, right? Like you're going to be borrowing $1 million+ on some of these things. And you have to be credit worthy, right? You can't have bad credit. I'm just going to put it out there right now. Like they're just not going to lend you on bad credit. You don't have to have amazing credit, right? It doesn't have to be 800+. I believe my preferred lender, he says, their lower threshold is about 675. And that's kind of in the fair section. So if you can be in the fair plus to good section, then that's a good thing right there. You don't have to have the best credit in the world, but if you have bad credit, now is the time to recognize that and start working on it. Now, this is the same for your spouse, right? Like if you're married, it's half of your spouse, right? So it's not the highest person's credit, it's the lowest person's credit, right? That's who they're basing this off of, the lowest person's credit. So if you and your spouse, you got to get on the same page, run that credit score now, figure out those kind of things, and at least know going into this, if this is your goal for this year, that let's work on this. Here's my to-do list. The same is with your investor partners. Anyone who's most likely going to have more than 20% equity in the deal, they're going to be signing on the loan docs. They're going to go through all of their info, their credit, bankruptcies, personal financial statements, taxes, all of these things, right? For the last at least 3 years. So their credit has to be good, and their spouse, again, right? The spouse is there, they're married, then it's 50-50. So same with bankruptcy. You should not have had a bankruptcy anytime recently, and maybe anytime never. I'm not going to put a definitive on there. That's a question for your banker. But if you've had a bankruptcy in the last 10 years or so, that may be a big hurdle for you. So these are some of the things that I want you to be aware of as you can potentially prep for these deals, for these conversations to have with the bank as you're kind of deal structuring these things.